NFTs?
Let's talk about NFT.
My favorite new topic.
I'm so obsessed too. I'm spending a ton of time on this.
NFTs are the future. NFTs are the future. Digital assets, digital collectibles.
That shit is worth 600K. It's been a wild 2 weeks, I'd say, in the world.
It's crazy 2 weeks of just a bunch of abbreviations that have been flying that people can't seem to make sense of. So we figured
Money-making machines.
Yeah.
Money-making machines, dude, these abbreviations.
So let's just jump right into what we want to talk about, and that is NFTs or non-fungible tokens. A non-fungible token. So let's kind of, unpack that and what that means. So comes from fungibility, which basically means a property or good or commodity whose individual units are essentially interchangeable, and each of its pieces are indistinguishable from another. So examples of this were cash, right? So if I give you, say, a $10 bill, you can give me back two $5 bills, and they're different. Right. They're different tokens. They're different things, but the value is still the same because they amount to the same thing. So that's fungible. And so we're saying that these are non-fungible in the sense that these are they're not interchangeable and they can't be replicated or reproduced or anything like that. So it's very unique and it's a very specific token.
Non-fungible tokens. These are one of the great parts about the whole crypto space, the blockchain space. Satoshi's white paper is that it was the first digital signature that you couldn't counterfeit. So think about what that means. You can make digital art that no one can counterfeit. And so all of a sudden, art gets its value from scarcity. Now we're going to see artists, for the first time ever, create art digitally. Take your phone, you're going to buy it, it's going to go on your phone, you're going to walk home and you're going to throw it up on a giant screen, and you're like, that's mine. No one else owns that thing. That's mine.
So basically, it's kind of like a certification that digitizes like the process of like, say, provenance, and prevents like forgery and fraud in the art world. Because the ownership of the art exists on the blockchain. The same can be done for like baseball cards, stamps, jewelry, or whatever it may be, or a collectible item in that case, right? Yeah. And then you have all these like famous people. By famous, I mean probably like YouTubers like Logan Paul. And that man made, I think it was $3 million selling his NFT.
Yeah.
Guy's a fucking business genius. He knows what the fuck he's doing. He recently had a podcast on it explaining why he got into it. I have a brand. I know to fucking sell myself.
Right.
Not in that way, obviously, but yeah, he sold a digital asset, and I think he sold like 2,000 or something along those lines for 1 Ether each. Right. Which was at the time, I think like 1,900, 1,700, something along those lines. But he banked it.
So for this first one, the NFT represented an entry in our giveaway of the last 3 Pokemon packs. So it's like, it's tying this event, this experience, this moment in time, this historical first $1 million box break with this up and coming digital collectible industry, which I think is cool.
So this would exist within a blockchain. So I'm gonna let you explain that and kind of where that plays into what this means.
It's bare bones. It's a system of like recording information.
Right.
And so essentially, it's just this giant digital ledger of transactions. Kind of the core properties of what we call a distributed ledger technology of what is kind of, what a blockchain is first that, it's distributed. By that, what we mean is that everyone who is a participant on that blockchain will have a copy of that ledger for the purposes of transparency.
Right.
And so that's kind of one of the benefits of, when people talk about the blockchain, they're talking about, this ledger, this timestamp thing. It's because that transaction that has been goes through the blockchain gets recorded onto that block.
Right.
And you can verify that transaction through looking at the ledger. It's immutable, though technically it still can be hacked, but it's really, really, really hard.
Right.
And so, that's another advantage to it. And, the way you kind of validate a transaction is like, all the network participants agree on a transaction and record. So in terms of like NFTs, I think most of them are on the Ethereum blockchain. Ethereum, again, similar to like any other, blockchain that exists. I think the more famous examples of an NFT on the Ethereum blockchain are CryptoKitties. I think a lot of people have heard of those. There's like a recent sale of I don't even know what the name of the cat is, for like 600K.
So
yeah, that shit is worth 600K.
All right, so what does that even mean? Like, let's kind of unpack that. Like, when you say that was worth 600K, right? Because I just shared this with you right now, and I didn't make 600K.
Let's look at just like the economics of, some of these tokens. There's a limited amount of these tokens out there. So one, that provides for a factor of scarcity. And we know that with anything scarce, your value can obviously be intrinsically higher. And then two, there's a lot of demand for that one thing, especially within, this hype train that we're going for.
Right.
And as we know, the more demand, the higher the price.
Yep.
Something in demand. Basically, the security of the blockchain guarantees the legitimacy of the transaction. In terms of value and pricing, that's where I kind of get lost with this.
Yeah.
But again, it's based on what someone intrinsically sees value as in terms of what they're paying for, right?
Yeah. And the best example that I was able to find is, I don't know if you remember this, but a while back, someone put a banana and a duct tape. They just duct taped a banana to a wall in a museum, and that art piece sold for $120,000. And so at the time, I was kind of like, this doesn't make sense. That banana's going to go bad in like a week. But essentially what you just explained, in terms of the certification of proof or certification documentation of that piece of art. So in this case, whoever bought it clearly has way too much money in their hands. They bought the rights to that artwork and to the likeness of that artwork. But so essentially they can replace the banana once it gets decomposed or whatever, but the artwork is still intact and it's considered the original form of it. So like you explained with the blockchain, so that is where the digital proof of that will be, then the certification.
Exactly. So I think like maybe even to peel this back, again, like you mentioned, like non-fungible tokens are basically blockchain assets.
Right.
That are designed not to be equal. In the future, like I think a lot of people are looking at NFTs as a way to potentially represent identity, qualifications, real world property and all that thing. So that's why like I think a lot of people are so hyped about this space, because like there is a potential future for it. It's just, we have to develop an ecosystem around it to support all this.
And we talked to an artist about this on one of our podcasts. And she mentioned that as well. Anyone can kind of repost and reshare your artwork. Like if you painted something, you put it up, I can reshare that on my story. And like technically I would have had to buy that artwork from you and put it up on my wall or whatever, but I can just share this in my story and you don't get to charge me for that.
Yeah.
And I mean, I guess you can argue that, there should be kind of some free sharing aspect of it, but the artists are always getting screwed on their end. And so this essentially kind of opens up the gate to be like, this is my specific digital version of that art piece. And if you want to use it in anything, then this is how you need to purchase it or purchase the rights to it. And you can't counterfeit that. As far as we know, it's very secure for now and until people find a way to hack it. But obviously you can hack anything. But yeah, so it can change art in a lot of ways, and not just visual art. Like we talked about this as well. It can change even video art, like graphic art, however you want to explain it.
And I think the NBA released something along those lines, right?
Highlight clips. Someone recently purchased LeBron's the highlight clip of
shoot 38% from downtown. Here comes LBJ! Look out!
I think it was like 200K or something along those lines, right?
Something like that, and I'm pretty sure it's been resold for a ridiculous amount.
Yeah.
I screen recorded LeBron James dunk. I own that. I screen recorded CryptoPunks. I own that.
No, you don't.
Yes, how are you gonna fucking tell me, bro?
I'll tell you how. Because I'll tell you why and how. Ready? That's the equivalent of coming up to me with a counterfeit baseball or Pokemon card and saying, "Oh, I have a first edition Charizard." No, you don't. You have a fake. It's a fake.
To your art example, so essentially what is happening with an NFT blockchain, we're hardcoding it into the ledger.
Right.
But the original creator can also specify a royalty if it's sold in the future. And you can actually track that. So let's give you like a traditional case of like an art piece. Let's just say John, for example. He's a painter. and he asked like some auction house to sell his art. You know that the auction house is going to take a percentage off his sale. So let's say Steve buys his piece of art for $1,000. The auction house takes 50%, leaving $500. Let's say in 10 years time, John becomes like this famous artist.
Right.
And now Steve decides to sell that piece of art. And let's say that piece of art is now worth $1 million. The auction house takes whatever fee, and Steve goes home with, I don't know, let's say $800K. Basically for his $1 million painting that he had the original to.
Right.
That he has kind of like rights to, I guess. Got nothing. It's like a fine space because technically you sold the ownership to that piece of art.
Right.
But you can, I guess, in a way still specify a certain percentage. And that's how like music people make royalty, right? I guess you can apply the same logic to art.
To the people that kind of are dismissing this right now in terms of, hey, like this is something that doesn't make sense, or like this doesn't make sense in the material world, so to speak. I thought it was a really funny example that I looked up on this, and it's essentially how we view products like a t-shirt. If I take a white t-shirt and just paint a red block on it and I sell that to you for like $5, you'll probably be like, all right, this is probably worth like $2, not even the $5.
Yeah.
But if you see that same shirt and it says Supreme in the middle of that red block, then it's like $150 and you're okay with that. That's kind of what people are missing, in the sense that this creates the ability to make a meme or a GIF or whatever and make it an original piece.
The fact that we're living in a digital world, what's a blue check verification worth to a lot of people in the world today? Unfortunately or fortunately, depending on how you want to look at it, quite a bit. And I think with the rise of VR, you can really start to understand why these NFTs have a real shine. I think that NFT is going to be something coming out of a lot of people's mouths on this program over the next half decade.
You think this is the future?
I think it has a good use case. Like if all the billionaires are going towards all, like, I guess, smart money going towards it,
right,
I think there's definitely potential for it. Again, there just has to be a more developed ecosystem. I think like digitizing is a smart thing. It has a lot of merit to it moving forward.
There's like old saying, like, don't listen to what people are saying, watch what their actions are. And if you look at all the billionaires, it's like they love to trash new things like Bitcoin. That's not backed by anything, or this doesn't make any sense. This is a digital fad, it'll pass, but they're still purchasing Bitcoin as like an edge, or like just in case. They're still putting money into these things. Like Visa and MasterCard are starting to
a lot of hypocrites out there.
Exactly. So I think with the future, it looks like we're clearly headed towards some kind of relationship with cryptocurrency. And once you accept that wholly, this digital world is going to be kind of the next thing. So I think we should hop into this and definitely start looking at what we can make out of these non-fungible tokens.
Yeah, man, I agree 100%.